Mil Mahagod Michael, I hope I can live up to all that now. A cardja agus a camrádathe, tá áthas agus brodúil mór orm bheith an seo nóg chun arád a bhúirt ag an cuineáin cásca i seo ag Clonakilty. Tá sé nócha sé bliain inis ó néadaigh agus séadaigh nuair a chuaigh Pádraig McPhearras agus na léacra eile amach agus thosaigh siad an éirí amach na cásca. Friends, I'm delighted and honoured to speak to you today at this morning's Easter Commemoration, and thank you for accommodating us again with the early start this year. I hear that many people are anxious to head into Bandon to see some guy with a beard. I think he used to be in the Bee Gees or something, so we'll head in there afterwards. So again, a cardja, we gather here every year in the shadow of the great Irish patriot, Taigan Asno Dunawan, to honour and pay tribute to those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for Irish freedom. As many of you may know, Tig and his colleagues took on the English Army at the Battle of the Big Cross in Shannon Vale in June of 1798. Unfortunately, as the Irish rebels ambushed the soldiers leaving Clonakilty, they became outnumbered when an unexpected batch of soldiers arrived on the scene coming from Bandon. After the ensuing battle, the victors dealt ruthlessly with the local insurgents, and many of the United Irishmen were tied to horses and dragged through the town before being brutally hung, drawn and quartered. Their mangled bodies were left as a warning to others for days outside the old market house just behind you on McCurtain Hill there. But the spark lit by those brave men and others in 1798 spurred on the patriots who fought at Easter 1916, later in the War of Independence and the generations since. And I'm absolutely truly honoured to have been involved in the opening of West Cork Sinn Féin's first constituency office at the site on McCurtain Hill where those men lay 214 years ago. Just up here. I love listening to the words of the 1916 proclamation, read so well for us again today by Dave McCarthy. For me, it sets out clearly the priorities of what we want for this country. Looking after our young people, respecting people no matter what their race, colour or creed, and promoting equal rights whether you're a man or a woman. It promotes equal opportunities and the use of the country's resources for the betterment of its own people. So how come those parties that claim lineage to the leaders of 1916 did almost the exact opposite as soon as they were elected to power? As well as handing over this country to the IMF, tribunal after tribunal has highlighted how Fianna Fáil are rotten to the core, with everyone from councillors, TDs, ministers and even former Taoiseach being implicated in planning irregularities and corruption on a massive scale. While we should be rejoicing that large oil and gas fields have been found off the West Cork coast, in all likeliness, the Irish people won't see much benefit, as the rights to many of our natural resources were signed away by the former Fianna Fáil minister and jailbird Ray Burke. Indeed, many voters gave Labour their support in last year's general election, only for their elected representatives to abandon all their principles once they got their bums into the comfy seats of government. What would James Connolly think of their support of scandalous budget cuts to the vulnerable in society, the unemployed and the disabled? And what happened to Labour's way or Frankfurt's way, as cheques for billions of euros of money, of taxpayers' money, were being handed over to French and German banks? And what of Fine Gael, who claim Michael Collins as their own? They promised so much with their 5-point plans, getting 100,000 people back to work, and not another red cent being paid over to Anglo bondholders. Instead, 500,000 people remain unemployed, thousands of our brightest and best have emigrated, and rural Ireland in particular has been abandoned, with potholed roads, shops, pubs, Garda stations and post office closures, and treks to small schools and ambulance services. And all the while, our local Fine Gael Dáil deputies claim the highest expenses of all the TDs in the Dáil. And what can I say about the candidate they put forward for last October's presidential election campaign? But I think Martin McGuinness hit the nail on the head when he pondered, if the going got tough, who would Michael Collins prefer to be in the trenches with, Gay Mitchell or Martin McGuinness? But despite all the doom and gloom, over the last year since we gathered here, I've witnessed an absolutely beautiful thing. On this Easter weekend, when Christians around the world celebrate resurrection and rebirth, I too want to celebrate the awakening of the Irish people. Hundreds and thousands of people, even here in easygoing West Cork, have taken to the streets to campaign and protest against government cutbacks. Whether in support of small rural schools, ambulance and hospital services, against the handover of billions of euro to Anglo bondholders, against the proposed septic tank charge and the recent refusal of 1 million people to register for the unjust farce that is the household charge. It has been truly uplifting. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to wish solidarity greetings to the workers in Vita Cortex in Cork. This is the 115th day of their protest, and it's an absolute disgrace if the owners and Jack Nolan won't pay the workers what they're due. So I'd like to send out our good wishes here this morning, and I've sent the lads in Vita Cortex a message saying that we'd send them our good wishes. So on behalf of them, thank you very much. And can I also take this opportunity to commend those who stood firm against Phil Hogan's bullying tactics in trying to get people to register for the household charge. This tax was really the straw that broke the camel's back, as people struggling to pay mortgages, pay for children's increased education fees, deal with increased fuel costs, salary cuts and possible job losses, said enough is enough. While we don't want people to openly break the law, we asked people to make their own mind up about this charge, and clearly the majority agreed with our analysis that this tax should be scrapped. For our part, we in Sinn Féin suggested replacing it with a higher rate of income tax for higher earners, 48% applying to those earning over 100,000 annually. These higher earners making €2.5 to €3 grand a week, they won't starve if they're asked to pay an extra €60 a week in tax, and that alone would bring in over 400 million. So sometimes it's more important to make a stand against bad laws. It wasn't too long ago that people using contraception were deemed to be breaking the law, or indeed gay people and those who took their own life. It took people like you and I to stand up for those rights to be recognised and challenge the government of the day. An old phrase comes to mind, that the only fish that swim with the stream are dead ones. So in the coming weeks, the government will be asking the Irish public to support the EU fiscal treaty, which will be voted on at the end of May. This treaty is not the vision of those who struck for freedom back in Easter in 1916. After 1 year of the Fine Gael Labour government, it is obvious that the austerity policies of this and the last Fianna Fáil-led government are not working. That is one good reason for opposing this austerity treaty in the referendum. This treaty would entrench austerity policies in our Irish constitution. That is not the vision of 1916. In fact, it's the complete opposite of what was said in the proclamation. It would mean another significant reduction of our sovereignty and the handover of democratic rights of the Irish people to unelected and unaccountable bureaucrats in Strasbourg, Brussels and Frankfurt. The Fine Gael Labour government, backed by Fianna Fáil, want to hand over our future to them. That's not in the interest of the Irish people, and we're stating strongly that the austerity treaty must be opposed. Again, I would appeal to the 50% of citizens who refuse to pay the household charge and the many others who were coerced and bullied into paying it to make a stand against the government's austerity policies by voting no in the referendum in May. So to wind things up, Carja, the achievement of a united Ireland is within our reach. Ireland, north and south, is changing. We are an island people in transition. The north, in particular, has been transformed in recent years. In this state, more and more people are beginning to realise that we don't have a real republic. Uniting Ireland makes economic sense. Uniting Ireland will bring jobs, create prosperity, and deliver a better standard of living for this and future generations. But to make that day come closer, we need to build a party in every parish in Ireland. So I'm calling on everyone present here this morning to come forward and join Sinn Féin, who I believe are the true keepers of the flame of 1916. People who are involved in the past, those who help out election time, young and old, we need everyone involved. There are genuine, good people in other parties who have been left down by the actions of their supposed leaders. And I would ask them, as well as the various other groups that refer to themselves as Irish Republicans, to give serious consideration to joining with us to move the project forward. Here in West Cork, we've embarked on an ambitious project with the opening of our first IFIG Agus Shupa up the hill, even though we don't have a full-time elected rep as yet. So if you have some spare time, we'd be delighted if you could help out with the office, which is run on a voluntary basis, and we would certainly welcome any contributions to defray the cost of running the office. So a cordial, Biggie Ling, join with us to make the vision of 1916 a reality. Let's all become energised by the new wave of people power that is rising up across the nation. Let us set ourselves the target of the 100th anniversary of 1916, which is only 4 years away, to bring about real and radical change in our society. And let us truly honour the people that we gather here to commemorate today by finishing their project and building the Ireland that they gave so much for. So I want to wish you all and your families a very happy Easter. Garamil Mahagil Kuler, Agus Chukti Arla.